Okay, so April was a rough month of reading for me, and I'm hoping May is going to go a lot better. So I've made a couple of changes because this is the last month that I'm going to have all of my books available for me to read. And so I just wanted to have the most options possible. So instead of playing my regular TBR game at the Unicorn Games, I've kind of combined that game with Bailey's game and come up with a whole new game that I think is going to provide me a lot more options based on how I'm going to play it. So I am going to be playing a game that I'm going to call You Got Played. And you can see the game board right here. So the game board is kind of set up like Bailey's game is, but the prompts are very different. And I'm basically going to be doing 1 week, one TBR with this. So I'm going to have a different TBR each week. And I think that's going to allow me more mood reading than I've been doing. I don't know. We'll see. But the gameplay, I'm going to move around the board kind of like I did in Bailey's game, using my humongous deck of cards here, and I'll just kind of explain it as we go along. So I will do 4 draws because each of the draws is going to be one of the weeks in May that I'm going to be reading. And April has gone so bad, at least for me, that I'm just going to start this TBR as soon as I finish recording this video. So hopefully it'll work with what I'm currently reading, and if it doesn't, that's okay. I really don't care at this point. April is not over, but I'm done with April. So here comes May. All right, so my first draw, 1 of 4, gives me a beast. Of course it does. So a beast would move me halfway back across the board, but since I'm starting this board new, I haven't even moved anywhere. So I guess I'll just do the very first prompt on this board. So if I haven't shown it to you already, hopefully you can now see the game board. I guess I'll circle the starting point. And yeah, that's also where I'm going to pick my first book from. Okay, well, I'm not mad about this. 24 and 24. So if you have been watching my videos in the past, you will know that I picked 24 books that were my 24 most anticipated reads for this year, and for 1 week in May, I will be focusing on getting through that list. Maybe I'll even be updating that list because I'm starting to wonder if I'm even anticipating some of those books anymore. But we'll definitely review the list, and then I'll pick some books, and then I'll read them, and we'll see what I end up doing. But it could be any book off that list. So that's where I'm hoping the sort of more mood reading aspect will come in. So we'll see what I pick that week. All right, pull number 2 is a 3. Okay, a 3 is going to be interesting. So on the board, I will move 3 spaces, but I have to somehow figure out how to combine all 3 of these next prompts. So let's go and see what those prompts will be. So a series, a read-a-thon, and least shelved. So I guess I need to pick prompts off a read-a-thon that can either include the least shelved and series, or I can do just the prompt that's for a series, but it has to be the least shelved or underrated books in that category. I don't know how I'm going to work that one out, but I guess I'll figure it out when I get to it. In fact, first I'll have to start by picking a read-a-thon for May. Okay. Well, when that week comes, I'll let you know what it is. My third draw is a talisman. The talisman card for me means that I will do a Storygraph Up Next challenge, and Storygraph has added this new feature where they make suggestions based off of your own TBR, and they make suggestions in different categories. I think there's like 4 or 5 categories. I don't know, every time I look, I feel like there's more categories. But anyway, during that week, basically Storygraph will be choosing what I read, but it does give me quite a few suggestions, so that's nice. I'll still get to pick a book that I'm in the mood for. So let's go and draw my 4th and final pick. And that will be a 0. Okay, so a 0 means I don't move anywhere on my board. And I was ended on the least shelved space, so I will have an entire week of reading books that have been the least shelved. That is actually going to come up quite a bit this month. I can see that already. So this does not mean that these books are unpopular per se. It just means on Storygraph, they're the books that people have mentioned the least as having on their TBR. So what I will do so that you actually have an idea of what this might look like is I'm going to go and see if I can gather together a couple of samples of what might be on the TBRs for those weeks. And then I will show you the rest of the books that I will definitely be reading in the month of May. So I went ahead and picked out some books that are a sample of the types of TBRs that I will be putting together. And so for the first week, I will be focusing on 24 and 24 list, or my most anticipated reads for this year. And one of the books on that list is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. This is rather convenient because I'm already reading this book, and in the middle of it, I haven't gotten very far at all. Like I mentioned, I'm still in April right now, like, as are you, now that I think about when I'm posting this. And this is nice that it will be one of the books that I will be reading in the first week of May, because I'm not making very fast progress in this because I'm kind of in a semi-reading slump. So this gives me extra time to keep reading this book. But there will also be other books on that TBR. So probably sometime next week, you will see that entire TBR, and if I end up refreshing it. All right, for the second week, I needed to do a read-a-thon, and the book that I have to read from that read-a-thon in some way has to be related to series and or has to be one of the least shelved books that needs to fit into that somehow. So, yeah, so that could be 3 books, 1 book, 2 books, who knows how many books. I did find a read-a-thon that I decided that I'm going to do, and that is the Read-a-thon readathon that is happening in May, and this is hosted by Donna at Mom's Book Collection. And she has a whole bingo board. And one of the prompts on that bingo board is to finish a series. So the book that I am going to use for that would be Three Men in a Boat. This is a series, and the second book in the series is Three Men on the Brummel, Three Men on the Bummel, rather. And so that will count for at least 2 of those prompts. It will be a readathon pick and it will be a series pick. And the only thing that I'm not sure is how frequently shelved this is on Storygraph. I'm guessing not very. So this will be added on. But I have that least shelved covered because the second or third or fourth, yeah, fourth, the fourth pick was also for a least shelved book, which is the ambassadors. So if I can figure out a prompt in the read-a-thon that will cover the ambassadors, then that will all be worked out in there. So hopefully that'll work out and I'll find a prompt on that for the ambassadors. And then for the third prompt, I needed to pick a Storygraph up next pick. And quite conveniently, Storygraph suggested I read The Phantom Tollbooth because it was like, oh, if you want to read more of what you've been reading, read this book. I'm guessing this was based off my reading Peter Pan. But this was also supposed to be one of the books that I was finishing up in April and is one of the books that I still want to read. So yeah, this will be the type of book that might be picked from Storygraph and probably will be, given that I at least currently still want to read it. We'll see by the time I get to that fourth week. And then for one of the other weeks, I needed to focus for the week on books that are least shelved. So if I haven't gotten to it during the read-a-thon week, I might come back around to the ambassadors. So even though there are 4 weeks in May, yeah, I chose 4 books so far as part of the TBRs. I don't know if any of that made sense as to how it's going to work. Just like and subscribe and you'll get announcements and bells and stuff will ring and you'll get the idea as you keep watching. That's what I'm trying to communicate. So these are the books that are going to be on my TBR as part of this game. Let me show you all the other books that I'm still reading anyway. I have one book that I am carrying over from April. Actually, I've mentioned a couple of books that I'm carrying over from April. Well, whatever. That book is The Arabian Nights, and I am trying to finish this in the month of May. I have made it a decent way through the book, and I think I've mentioned that I'm moving in June, and I don't want to take this with me in my luggage. I want to pack it with the rest of our furniture and the rest of my books, and because I'm done with the book by then. So my goal is to finish this book by the end of May. I will put on this screen how many pages I have left in this book and how many pages I'll have to read a day to make that happen. It's probably going to be more than the 10 that I've been doing, but that's okay, especially if it means that I finish that book. I have 3 buddy reads that I am doing in the month of May. One of them is a carryover from April, and that is The Mysteries of Paris. I am reading this with Stormy at Storm Reads, and we finished book 1 and 2 in this in the month of April, and we will be carrying on reading it, and we'll be working on at least book 3. I'm not sure if we're doing book 3 and 4, we'll see, but I'll still be reading this. And another buddy read I have going on is going to have me reading Shirley by Charlotte Bronte. I am reading this with Melinda at A Web of Stories, and I don't know if this will fit into any of the other weeks that I have, but it'll just be being read in the background somehow. And my third and final buddy read for the month is Quo Vadis. And this is supposed to be a book that covers basically the end of Nero's reign and the Roman Empire, and just sort of how the culture there fell apart under him. And then also the cultural shift that is occurring because Christianity is becoming more popular at the time and it is really changing people's lives. And the author sort of uses this historical fiction to explore that time period. I've heard some really good and interesting things about this book, so I'm looking forward to reading it. Okay, so this is the sum total of books that may or may not be on my TBRs for May. The bottom four books are definitely going to be read. The top four are more sort of standing in and representing what may be on those TBRs for those weeks. But like I said, if you just keep watching, you will see me pick out a complete TBR for the week, and then you will have a wrap up on what I read and what I thought about that theme for that week. So it'll be interesting to see what I end up reading, whether I end up just reading one book that fits that theme or multiple books or whatever. So that's it for today. Let me know what you are reading in the month of May, and I'll see you next time. Bye.